What words or numbers come to mind when you hear the following names? Childish, Donald, Gambino, Glover. Words like multi-hyphenate creator, 3005, Atlanta, Redbone, community, Oreo, I hate that term by the way, misogynoir. In today's video, I will be discussing the life, work, criticism, and controversy of the actor, writer, producer, director, rapper, comedian, singer, father, husband, multi-hyphenate creative artist that we know as Donald McKinley Glover Jr., musically known as Childish Gambino. By the end of the video, I hope that two pertinent questions are answered. Does Donald Glover really hate black women? And was his show Atlanta as groundbreaking and revolutionary as it is perceived to be? There's so many videos about Donald Glover here on YouTube, and I feel like they're all polar opposites. It's either a bunch of film bros kissing his ass, or it's people grilling into him with no real context or nuance. So I want this to be a one-stop shop for any and everything Donald Glover, because we're gonna get into the good, the bad, the ugly, the dorky, the misogynistic, the anti-blackness. We're getting into it. Gambino. Know they hate, but I don't know why. Well, we're about to get into why possibly they hate Donald in this video. I want this to be a very neutral video for the most part, but I'm still going to express my own personal experiences with his work. Let's get into it. Donald McKinley Glover Jr. was born on September 25th, 1983, making him 41 years old during the making of this video, a Libra, and a true millennial. He was born on a military base in California, but grew up in Stone Mountain, Georgia. DeKalb County, stand the fuck up!
New York, stand the fuck up!
He grew up in Stone Mountain during a time where the demographics of the city were not what they are today, which is primarily black. It was a suburb that was considered more affluent and white at the time. He has a brother named Steven, who we will grow to know as one of his frequent collaborators, and a sister named Brianna. He attended Rockbridge Elementary School, going into detail on his song The Last, saying, "Now I'm going to the school called Rockbridge, school of the neighborhood we trying to buy a house in. There's not a lot of black kids, so I stick out like a sore thumb with some bad acne." During high school, he participated in things of the artsy variety like plays and musicals, and he graduated from the DeKalb School of the Arts in 2002. For college, he went to New York University's Tisch School of the Arts and graduated with a BFA in dramatic writing in 2006. He was also DJing under the name MC DJ, and he also co-founded a sketch comedy group called Derek Comedy, where they uploaded skits to this very site that you're on right now, youtube.com. After graduation from college, he continued to write and do skits for Derek Comedy. He soon sent over some sample scripts to David Miner, who has produced shows like Parks and Recreation, Love, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Never Watched Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, # Titus Burgess Supremacy, and NBC's 30 Rock. David and the creator of 30 Rock, the Tina Fey, loved Donald's work samples, and they hired him as a writer for 30 Rock at the age of 23. Donald would later talk about being a diversity hire, saying, quote, "There is no animosity between us or anything like that, but she said it herself. It was a diversity thing. It definitely didn't feel like I was supposed to be there. The answer was in large part yes. She admired Glover's talent but hired him because funds from NBC's diversity initiative made him free." He would make occasional cameos on the show and ultimately was a writer on 30 Rock for 3 years. In 2009, Derek Comedy wrote and starred in their feature film Mystery Team. In 2010, Donald performed a stand-up comedy set for Comedy Central Presents. I absolutely hate stand-up comedy. I can't stand it, y'all. It has nothing to do with the individual performer. It's just the whole thing about going up there. You're supposed to be saying stuff that's funny and we're supposed to laugh. Like, it's something very odd about that to me. It's just the structure itself, something about it I don't mesh with. But because I am a dedicated researcher, I watched the first 5 minutes. That's all I could bear. And I must say that the impressions were great. He looked and sounded like such a little southern boy who just got off the train in New York City for the first time. In 2012, Comedy Central released Weirdo, which is Donald Glover's 1-hour stand-up comedy special. Donald was a cast member on the NBC sitcom Community for 5 seasons. For those of you who don't know, because I did not, it's this community college in fictitious Colorado, and he starts a study group trying to get close to a girl. A bunch of other people join, join and it's shenanigans. The show wasn't NBC's highest viewed breadwinner or anything like that, but it does have extremely very loyal fan base. The show is cute, funny, it's like irreverent type of comedy, if that's your type of thing. You already know that Abed is my favorite character, thank you very much. However, Donald left the show in season 5 stating, "I asked to leave Community because my heart really wasn't in it. I feel like if I stayed there, I'd be doing my life a disservice. Community is, I think, one of the best shows on television, but it's not mine. I just want to make dope shit from now on my own terms." The last Community episodes that Donald Glover was in aired in 2013. The same year, he was set to write, executive produce, and star in a half-hour music comedy series on FX titled Atlanta.
So we got these little scooters in Atlanta. If you live—
Wait, Ricky. You can't give it to him dry like that. You gotta get this shit wet first. Like, come on now. We cannot start talking about Atlanta and not address this man's whole music career and unparalleled rap persona. Like, are you for real? Come on. It is assumed that Donald Glover began rapping while he was at Tisch. As most of you know, he got the name Childish Gambino from a Wu-Tang Clan name generator website. I typed in my name and I now would like all of you to refer to me professionally as Zexy Wizard. Mixtape was released in 2008 titled Sick Boy. In 2009, mixtape Poindexter, followed by I Am Just a Rapper, I Am Just a Rapper 2, and Cul-de-sac. He released his first EP titled EP in 2011. Also in 2011, he signed with Glass Note Records and released his debut studio album, Camp. The album was produced by Donald and Ludwig Göransson, who happened to be the score composer for the show Community and would ultimately become one of Childish Gambino's frequent collaborators. He released his second studio album, Because the Internet, in December of 2013. The single 3005 peaked at number 64 on the Billboard Hot 100. He got his first Grammy nominations from this album and released the first concept mixtape ever in 2014, a joint project titled Stone Mountain and Kauai, respectively. In 2016, he released his third studio album, Awaken, My Love. The single Redbone peaked at number 12 on the Billboard Hot 100, and the song was almost inescapable at the time. For good reason, of course, it's a pretty good song. The song won a Grammy for Best Traditional R&B Performance. Childish Gambino facilitated a cultural reset when he released the song This Is America in May of 2018. I remember coming to school that Monday and this is what everyone was talking about. It was just like hot goss, hot topic. I was touched by the video and the accompanying ad-libs from the various rappers. Like when the beat slows down, it's like dun 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 dun. But you're just a black man. When I first heard that, I started levitating. I don't know about y'all, but you could kind of hear the heaviness in his tone and it just further emphasized what he was saying about being like a black man in this world. To my surprise, according to Donald, this song was initially supposed to be a diss record towards Aubrey Drake Graham, musically known as Drake. Quote, "The idea for the song started as a joke. To be completely honest, This Is America, that was all we had was that line. It started as a Drake diss, to be honest, as like a funny way of doing it. But then I was like, this sounds kind of hard though. So I was like, let me play with it." I'm not going to spend too much time talking about This Is America because there are countless amount of think pieces and videos here on YouTube and really across the internet as a whole examining all the symbolism and messaging in both the song and the music video. Not trying to be up Pitchfork's ass or anything because I know how people feel about them, but I do like how Stephen Kears sums up This Is America beautifully. He uses the ambivalent reception of black art to represent the tightrope of being black. This Is America debuted at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. The song swept that year's Grammy Awards ceremony, winning Song of the Year, Best Music Video, Best Rap/Song Performance, and making history, becoming the first rap song to win Record of the Year. In 2020, he streamed his 4th studio album on his website for 12 hours on loop before he said, "Snatchies, gimme him."
Snatchies, bitch. Gimme him.
And took it down just to release it officially the following week, simply titled the date he originally streamed it, which was 3/15/20 or March 15th, 2020. Childish Gambino has released a whopping 5 studio albums, 14 mixtapes, and 4 EPs. On multiple occasions, Donald Glover has talked about retiring the pseudonym of Childish Gambino and his music career entirely. More on that later.
What's going on? Y'all are going to jail Period!
After the success of writing and acting for 30 Rock, Mystery Team, his comedy stand-ups, his work on shows like Community, Adventure Time, Regular Show, and Donald signed a deal with FX in 2013 to create a music-themed comedy show. The season began airing in September of 2016. According to the Atlanta fandom wiki page, the series follows two cousins, Ernest Marks and Alfred Paperboy Miles, as they navigate through daily life in the southern metropolis amidst racism, poverty, and the nuances of black rap culture. The show also stars Lakeith Stanfield, who plays Darius, and Zazie Beetz, who plays Vanessa. A lot of the episodes of Atlanta are directed by Hiro Murai, who is one of Donald's frequent collaborators. He directed a lot of Childish Gambino's music videos, including 3005, Sweatpants, and This Is America. He also directed the music videos for DJ Got Us Falling in Love by Usher and Mr. 305, Pitbull, and the classic Airplanes by B.O.B. featuring Hayley Williams of Paramore. Upon its release, the show Atlanta was a smash hit and is still highly regarded to this day. I was in the 9th grade when Atlanta came out, and Atlanta was actually one of the first shows that got me really interested in media, TV, entertainment, like trying to become a TV buff and trying to like critically analyze media more. This show kind of was the catalyst for that, believe it or not. I liked the adventures that the show took its viewer on. The show provides a comedically existential view of the black experience set in one of the black meccas of the United States, Atlanta, Georgia. What I and others think makes the show so special and unique is that it could be anything at any time. Whether we're continuing to follow the story arc of Ern and Al navigating the complexities of trying to make it in hip-hop, or we're taking a complete detour as we follow the journey of a white child grieving the loss of his Trinidadian born nanny. All 41 episodes of the show very layered and utilize subtext to a harrowing degree. The show explores themes of racism, classism, and human nature, and taking instances of things like exploitation or gentrification, flips these things on its head with a surrealist approach that allows the reader to see the absurdity of our own reality. And it does all of this in the most blackiest black way possible while keeping humor and intentionality in mind. It's something that we haven't seen done and received so well in such a mainstream way, resulting in the overall hype of the show. A lot of people consider Atlanta to be a great use of Afro-surrealism, depicting the art through things such as BAN, which is Black American Network, The Invisible Car, which will go down in history. If I'm having a bad day, I just have to watch that scene. It's so stupid. It's so stupid, but it's funny. Or even in one of my personal favorite episodes, season 3, episode 1, 3 Slaps. Afro-surrealism is used to challenge the viewer to question why we subscribe to widespread beliefs and the various implications, damaging or otherwise, of doing so. This particular creator here on YouTube does a magnificent job of explaining this, so I highly recommend their video for more detail. Now, there is a 4-year gap in between seasons 2 and 3 of the show. It is important to note that Donald had previously said that the show wasn't supposed to run longer than 2 seasons. He says, and quote, "To be honest, I wanted to end it at season 2. Death is natural. When the conditions are right for something, they happen, and when the conditions aren't right, they don't happen." In 2020, Donald Glover took to Twitter to tweet, "While I'm here, Atlanta season 3 and season 4 are going to be some of the best television ever made. Sopranos only ones who can touch us." Wow, talk about anticipation. Season 3 finally premiered in 2022 and was primarily set across the pond in Europe, thousands of miles away from the titular city. There was definitely a tonal, anthological shift for season 3, and for people who loved the main characters, they weren't in half of the season's episodes. Season 3 commentates on themes such as capitalism and tour life. Some people missed the main characters and didn't like how disconnected their arcs felt, which has been a reoccurring criticism of this show. A critic said, quote, "Glover has been accused this season of being self-indulgent or unfocused or weird for the sake of being weird." Rest in peace to Devontae Hart and his foster siblings. It wasn't even like a big sensational story, like it didn't get a ton of attention. Powers that be! Let me stop. The fourth and final season of Atlanta premiered a few months later on September 15th, 2022, and the final episode of Atlanta, titled It Was All a Dream, aired on November 10th, 2022. It's been almost 2 years since the ending of what a lot of people consider one of the greatest shows in the 21st century, or at least in like the 2010s. I mean, hey, you heard Donald himself put the show up there with like The Sopranos. Atlanta is one of the only American cable television series to feature an all-black writing staff. In 2017, Donald Glover made history, becoming the first Black African-American Negro person to win an Emmy for outstanding directing for a comedy series. The show has done a lot for, you know, Black media, Black storytelling, and one would think that a show this praised would be the culmination of his career, right? But no, we're just getting started. You just got me started. Okay, let's finally get into the criticism and controversy of Donald McKinley Glover Jr. Girl, let me get my glasses for this because we're going to be reading a lot of quotes. I don't actually wear glasses. I have like perfect vision, but I'm going to wear these to make myself feel smarter. Do I look stupid? In 2006, Derek Comedy, Donald Glover's sketch group from college, uploaded a skit called Bro, a Newsline investigative report. The skit depicts Donald being another male. The skit went viral at the time and is still fully up on YouTube for you to view right now at this very second. In the early part of his career, he seemed to take a very lackadaisical approach, such a sensitive topic like sexual assault. He would go on to defend his right to make jokes, saying, quote, "I think it's odd that you can't joke about when people joke about murder all the time. A lot more people are dying than getting. I think it's a comedian's job to make everything funny. Nothing is off limits. But I believe the perfect joke would turn someone. My sister has mental problems, but I use the word in my comedy. Do I love her any less? Would I go up to a mental ward and say, you idiots? No, I would never do that. But sometimes saying it's funny. It's a release." In his 2011 Weirdo comedy special, he makes an interracial N-word joke that goes as follows. I like, you know, I've said this in my raps before. I like to date the black girls of every culture. You know, like Filipinos. They're like the black girls of Asians. Armenians, who's like the black girls of white girls. I was dating this Armenian girl, and we were making sex. But I was having sex with her, and we were towards the end, and she goes, "F me harder" with that N-word, and I stopped, look at her right in the eye, and I harder than I've ever before. It was awesome, you guys. It was so great. Like, I was like, what? Like, I couldn't believe it. Like, it was almost worth being black my entire life. It was so great. It was so great. I actually felt bad for white dudes. I felt bad. I was like, you guys will never have that. You'll never have that. End quote. During this time, he was also under fire for supposedly having like an intense fetishization for Asian women in his music, with lyrics like in the song Kids Keep Up, where he says, "These dudes, man, you bathing in apes. Finding yous like finding Asians I hate. But they say I got a fetish. Nah, I'm skipping all of it. Black and white girls always come with a set of politics." Or in Freaks and Geeks, where he raps, "Love is a trip, but effing is a sport. Are there Asian girls here? Minority Report." Or in the song Backpackers, where he raps, "I got a girl on my arm, dude. Show respect. Something crazy. An Asian. Virginia Tech." Which also I think was referencing a mass shooting. In an interview with Hard Knock TV, Donald is asked if he has an Asian fetish, and he responds with saying, quote, "It's not really a fascination. People think I have a fetish. I don't know, maybe I do." He continued that Asian women are easier to date than black or white women because they're not as controversial, and their parents' only requirement is that the guy is successful. Even if he means no harm by the comments, it is enforcing long-held and dangerous beliefs and stereotypes that Asian women are objects to be desired with no say in who desires them because they are submissive. Growing up the way Donald did, you know, being black, attending predominantly white schools, identifying himself as a black nerd who's into nerd-like things, a lot of his early work reflects this and centers around him being an Oreo. For those of you who don't know what an Oreo is, the dictionary.com definition is a black person who was regarded as having adopted the attitudes, values, and behavior thought to be characteristic of middle-class white society, often at the expense of their own heritage. In fact, he depicts the implications of being labeled or categorized as an Oreo in some Atlanta episodes. When interviewed a couple years back, he says, and I quote, "Drake wears gold chain. I could never pull off wearing chains. J. Cole's been to jail. I haven't. Those were, and to some degree still are, the templates of star rappers. And Glover, someone who's been called Oreo because he was black on the outside but loved white things, like above the knee shorts, could not relate. On the track Not Going Back, he raps this about himself, quote, "Black dudes assume I'm closeted or kinda gay. White people confused like Girl on Glee and Gabourey." Shout out to Amber Riley. And then later in the song he raps, "These smart middle class black kids need a role model." The title of this article is because there was definitely a shift in Donald's work and perception between 2016 when Atlanta premiered and 2018 when This Is America was released. Lots of praise during this era, of course, but also tons of criticism, with the unreliable narrator, Dr. Umar, having his 2 cents, saying, quote, "Childish Gambino's video contained powerful metaphors, but once the contradiction of a white queen surfaced, it diluted his message." Yes, he has a right to discuss the black experience, but wanting to have that experience with a white woman clearly says he doesn't value it enough. As much praise and notoriety as the first 2 seasons of Atlanta received, it seemed that the tables turned for his black audience in regards to season 3, with black critics reminding Donald of his Oreo origins, coming to the consensus that the show was a black show for white people. The show was for white people, it was for white audiences. And how Donald is too concerned with how white people receive his work, or in this case, the show Atlanta. In this Spin article, it says that he, quote, "wanted to show white people that you don't know everything about black culture." However you want to interpret that sentiment, Glover has long had a fixation on how black people come off to the white gaze. It's an understandable anxiety, but he's less concerned about how this fixation distances himself from the actual black people for whom he claims to be making art for. Donald eventually responded to the criticism about the show being for white people, saying, quote, "A lot of the black criticism bothers me only because it sounds like black people who don't really know what we've been through. I don't think they've given a lot of credit to what we've gone through. To sit there and be like, oh, these black people hate black people, or oh, these black people hate black women, it's such a small view of who we are." I'm kind of with Kendrick. I'm a little through with the culture personally. I do a lot of shit for the people, but the culture, I think a lot of us are sitting here going, a lot of this is up because of what happened to us. If you think this is misogyny noir, why would you think that? And why would you think I feel that way? I'm nothing without my people. If I have to answer the question, no, we don't feel hurt by the criticism. I listen to the criticism, but the conversation isn't as elevated as it should be. Drag them! This is such a black show on a lot of levels. To say that it's for white people, we're cutting ourselves down. It's just sad to me, mostly. End quote. I wanted to get some actual fan interpretations into this video to keep it nice and neutral so we have things from both sides. So this Reddit user, King Muscuddy, says, "Pretty ironic that Donald always calls himself an Oreo because he talks white and whatnot. Just like how the radio dude says the N-word around him but won't say it in front of Paperboy and Darius in season 1, episode 1. Donald literally confronted that in the show and these critics were too dumb to realize it. The girls are fighting! The girls are fighting! I don't know, all this back and forth of a black show by a black creator with a mostly black writing staff being too white for a black audience or being catered to white people. This sounds like it could be an interesting episode of Atlanta if you ask me. Okay, let's finally talk about why Donald Glover has constantly been criticized for having an alleged disdain, hatred, or odd, like, oppositional stance towards black women, and how this has followed him for years and seems to be growing more intense as the years go by, or something. Like every time he comes out with a project, it's something that is brought up. So we went over his jokes, lyrics, his upbringing, and all these things definitely paint a picture of how he views certain women. Yeah, jokes are just jokes, but they come from somewhere, you know? They don't just come out of thin air. You have some type of experience to pull those jokes from. And with these jokes, with these lyrics, black women make their own assumptions. Okay, cool. For example, going back to Not Going Back, the song from 2011, he raps, "Dirty girls love my they're cockroaches. Jewish girls eat my meat. It's not kosher. Relax, black chick. I think that I have offended thee. Got nothing against the sisters. I just don't think they're into me." Sisters, sorry. Someone on Reddit said this better than I could, so I'm just going to quote them. And they made an interesting comment about the relationship between black women and alternative, for the lack of a better word, alternative black men. DB Class says, "If you're familiar at all with the black community, there's a lot of strife between nerdy black people and the people who bully the nerds. It was still seen as being less black to enjoy anything remotely seen as nerdy. This has led to a ton of black men and women who have written off dating their own race due to the hate they received as children. There's also just a stigma against interracial dating from anyone in the black community, and anyone, both black men or women, dating out can be seen as a traitor to the community. Then comes the disconnect between him and how black women are depicted in his show Atlanta. I'm not surprised at all to find how few black women are involved in the making of the series, because it shows. But there is one aspect about the show that has been bothering me since its debut in the fall of 2016. The negative portrayal of black women, specifically those of darker skin. Throughout the series, black women are stereotyped to the point where it makes me want to roll my eyes into another dimension. The actresses do a great job with the material they are given, but I can't help but feel a bit uncomfortable laughing at the jokes. The Champagne Poppy episode in season 2 has become infamous in regards to like black women in this show and how they're depicted because of what was displayed during the episode. In a scene that went viral on Twitter, a dark-skinned black woman unleashes an oddly bitter tirade against a white woman at a party for dating a black man. Another questionable, if not totally problematic episode that season follows the series' male characters on a trip to Statesboro where they're terrorized by a group of black college women. Before critics could even criticize Van's disappointing trajectory, the casting of Beats, a biracial light-skinned woman, led to a separate but somewhat related conversation about colorism. There was others defending Donald amidst this Atlanta black woman criticism. Of course it matters to the black women who loved Atlanta. They wanted to see their sisters portrayed with the same depth as Earn, Paperboy, and Darius. Fair. But is it okay for a show to be great at exploring certain sorts of characters and shy away from others? I understand the urge to demand a great show to be as great at portraying women as men, but what if that's beyond the creators? What if that's not really within their creative abilities? It seems like Donald Glover and his team set out to give us a show that's all about men, that takes us deep into young black male masculinity. Is it okay for a show to concentrate on one element and not try to be all things to all people? Is it okay for him to say that this show is focused on black men because he knows the core of black men and does not know the core of black women, and writing about what he knows will put him in a place to write a great show? I think you can. I wish that Van were as complex as the guys, but I think Glover realized his strengths as a creator, leaned into them, and avoided his weaknesses. That is part of creating successful art. Interesting. And as Atlanta came to a close, for some, the depictions still didn't seem to get much better. While the critically acclaimed show succeeded in many ways, the predominantly black male writers' room struggled to represent the series as black, female, mostly side characters beyond two-dimensional sketches, occasionally invoking racist and sexist stereotypes. In 2018, when he released the music video for Feels Like Summer, black women questioned the scene where Michelle Obama is comforting a crying Kanye West who is donning a MAGA hat. Viewers, black women in particular, were quick to point out that the image seemed to imply that black women are a natural choice to help black men through their struggles, even those who have caused a lot of suffering for themselves and the people around them. It's not clear that the intention of the West Obama image was to make this particular claim about the role of black women in society, but there's also not much in the video to counteract critics' interpretation. And since the video was created by 3 men and features sympathetic crying images of both West and known abuser Chris Brown, both the messages and who the storytellers are holds greater significance. But I say all this to say that Donald Glover is very much aware of how his name has been linked to misogyny for the past couple of years, but he never really addressed it until 2022. He interviewed himself for his cover story with Interview Magazine. At first, I was very confused on how you can interview yourself, but he did. I mean, I guess it's like talking to yourself. You just write down the questions and answers. He asked himself, "Are you afraid of black women? Why are you asking me that?" He answers, "I feel like your relationship to them has played a big part in your narrative. I feel like you're using black women to question my blackness. All right, are you gonna teach your kids how to be black?" Well, yeah. Should someone else? End quote. Also, the Atlanta episodes are known for having witty, eccentric, breaking the fourth wall type of descriptions. And the description for the 9th episode of season 3, titled Rich Wigga Poor Wigga, reads, "Black and white episode, yawn, Emmy bait, why do they hate black women so much?" So very much tongue-in-cheek, aloof, y'all wildin', I'm chillin' type of approach he has taken to the criticism. In 2023, Swarm, a black comedy horror miniseries created by Janine Neighbors and Donald Glover, was released on Prime Video. The series is about an obsessed Houston-based fan who goes to increasingly violent lengths for her favorite R&B singer. She turns murderous. The show stars my fave, Dominique Fishback. I talked about her in Judas and the Messiah on this video. The show received mostly positive reviews from critics, but it also reignited the Donald Glover misogynoir conversations because of the depiction of Dre and some comments he made about the direction of the character. Quote, "I kept telling her, you're You're not regular people. You don't have to find the humanity in your character. That's the audience's job. Think of it more like an animal and less like a person. Actors in general, they want to get layered performances, and I don't think Dre is that layered. I wanted her performance to be brutal. It's a raw thing. It reminds me of how I have a fear with dogs. So to give some context, if you haven't seen the show, Dre is murderous, and she's also mentally ill. She's going through a lot in life, and she's a young black woman. Critics heard this and responded, referring to a human being as an it or an animal is almost always a red flag that points to an individual's deeper feelings, and it doesn't feel like a coincidence that Glover, who has continuously been criticized for dehumanizing portrayals of black women, would quite literally hinder an actor's ability to find the humanity in a black woman character. With these damning quotes, Glover's misogynoir is no longer subtext. It's canon. He chose to take a black LGBT mentally ill woman and make her the avatar of violent stands. All of these intersections of oppression are far more likely to be victims of violence rather than perpetrators. Perhaps this is also how Glover has come to see black women, as a dangerous horde of screeching banshees that he must endure, but never capitulate to. We are upset because in his work, he has made us objects of horror and ridicule, or as mere plot devices to move black men's stories forward. I did not realize until doing this research that there was such backlash and how Dre was depicted in the comments Donald Glover made about the character. The series' showrunner has made it clear that while the pitch for Swarm was originally Glover's, he wanted to allow a black woman to write a series about a black woman. Overall, Swarm seemed like a ripe opportunity for him to acknowledge black women in his art beyond broadly written caricatures or plot devices. The consensus online seems to be that the series does, despite how Glover chooses to interpret the protagonist, but as much as we might need him to address or explain his latest remarks in a meaningful, remorseful way, history suggests he probably won't. You didn't ask, but I personally liked Swarm. I do think that the use of these two subject matters combined, it's super interesting, and I think that's why I like the show so much, because I had never seen anything like it. On the flip side, I do understand these critiques and how these comments being applied to a black woman, how we've been viewed and perceived throughout history, especially throughout this video as we are world building Donald's criticism. But again, to play devil's advocate, did y'all watch the show?
Tamar, have you ever watched the show?
It kind of comes with the territory. To elaborate on this, I don't think the show was using a black woman who has all these intersections in a malicious way. To me, they were taking the route of, okay, let's tap in on what represents a lot of stans and fans, which are women. Look at videos, the women in the 60s going crazy over the Beatles. Like, I think they wanted to take that picture of obsession and combine it with psychological horror. But maybe that was the whole point of the show, to flip the expected on its head. But then the critics are saying that these have real life implications. In 2024, while doing press for another one of his Amazon shows that we'll talk about later, he's asked about how he feels about the misogynoir label and basically everything we've talked about for the past couple minutes. Quote, despite mentoring black women like Malia Obama, there's this narrative that accuses you of misogynoir, Donald, and you ask yourself, quote, are you afraid of black women? Why did you wade in? I felt like it was something that people always say but no one ever asked, because I felt like people really don't want to know. It's a better narrative, but anybody who actually knows me knows how much that hurts me. It does? Of course. But I also realize it doesn't matter. People are not going to read this and be like, wow, I was wrong. In 2023 at the Writers Guild for America Awards, Donald Glover made a joke about Lena Dunham using the N-word on the set of Girls. I asked Lena, hey, what made you decide to work with Paul? And she goes, honestly, this ninja lets me do whatever I want. I listened to the clip and it did actually draw very sparse to little laughter from the room, probably, you know, like white uncomfortability. Not saying everybody in the room was white, but I don't think I would have laughed at that either, honestly. One, Lena is using the N-word extremely liberal with me. Who does she think she is? Chevy Chase? I guess Lena heard about this and had to make it known to the public that she would never use a word like that. Quote, Donald Glover took a joke referencing Lena Dunham for last night's WGA Awards. It included, for effect, language Lena never used nor would use, because she's an ally. A representative for Glover confirmed in an email to the Times that Glover's joke was indeed exactly that. A joke. Not really controversy or criticism. I just wanted to throw that in there so that all my deep dives can start to connect somehow. In December of 2023, Giannina Antoinette Oteto, who's the model that is on the cover of Awaken My Love, reminded the public on her Facebook page that she still has not gotten her money for the work she did for the album Imagery. I did not know about this. This was TEA for me. This album has been so hard for me to celebrate for many reasons, and for years I resented it even. I resented it because myself, the makeup artist and stylist, all black women, were taken advantage of and lied to. We received low pay but were promised residuals but never received anything. After years of lies and silence, it's been an exhausting, emotional, and overall sad thing to deal with, especially the fact that we all worked on it and with so much love and being proud to represent Black artists. All of my lawyer's communications have been ignored by the artist and his team. Donald Glover's team, Last Note Records, RCA, whoever, y'all need to give this girl her mind. Cover art is super beautiful, it's super recognizable, so symbolic and regal and evoking. If she was promised something, she should be given it, period.
Give it to me! Give it to me! Give it to me! Just give it!
In 2013, Donald Glover played Derek in the movie The To-Do List, starring quirky, darling Aubrey Plaza. The film ended up performing below expectations, considering its star-studded cast. In 2015, he played Nico in The Lazarus Effect, Andre in Magic Mike XXL, and Rich Pernell in The Martian. Donald is also a part of the Spider-Verse Marvel shiz, voicing Miles Morales for Disney XD's Ultimate Spider-Man series, playing Aaron Davis in 2017 Spider-Man Homecoming, and also surprised fans with a live-action cameo of the same character in 2023's Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. In 2018, Donald Glover starred as Lando Carlson in Solo, the Star Wars story. He wrote and starred in the musical film Guava Island alongside bad gal Robin Rihanna Fenty. That movie has been in my Amazon watch list. It has been sitting there for years. It didn't even occur to me that it came out over 6 years ago. That's how long it's been sitting there. In 2019, he voiced Simba in the photorealistic animated remake of the 1994 classic film The Lion King. Although this movie gets a lot of shiz, it still brought in numbers because it's one of the highest grossing films of all time. So, what the heck is DG doing nowadays? In 2021, Donald Glover signed an overall deal with Amazon Studios. The first project of the deal being 2023's Swarm miniseries, and the second being this year's Mr. and Mrs. Smith, where he stars, writes, produces, and directs. The series serves as a television reboot of the classic 2005 film starring Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. He was supposed to star in the series alongside his fellow solo Star Wars castmate Phoebe Waller-Bridge, but she ended up suddenly exiting the project in 2021, not only as the lead actress but also as co-writer. In response to the departure, Donald says, and quote, "It's a divorce in a weird way. You're like, oh shiz, this should have worked. It might have just been cultural. You've got to think. Fleabag was written entirely by her. They really don't do writers' rooms in the UK. I don't think we ever felt comfortable enough with each other, and that's okay." She was replaced by actress Maya Erskine, and the show premiered on Amazon Prime February 2nd, 2024. In research for this video, I of course watched the show and I'm mostly done. I have 2 episodes left and I love it. I see the hype, I see why it has all the nominations. It's not the same plot as the Mr. and Mrs. Smith movie. They do something funky and different. I like it. I just got done with the therapy episode, and that one scene where John is going off on Jane in the woods gagged me. The show has been renewed for a 2nd season. Donald married his longtime partner Michelle White earlier this year amidst the production of Mr. and Mrs. Smith. How fitting. They have 3 sons. Sometime between season 2 and season 3 of Atlanta, Donald founded a multimedia production company called Gilga. In April of 2023, Donald confirmed that he would take part in the Community movie that's supposed to be coming out sometime. It keeps getting pushed back, girl. They said it's because of Donald's schedule. Somebody said it's because of Mikhail's schedule. He is set to return as Simba for the prequel and sequel to The Lion King, Mufasa, The Lion King, which is coming out at the end of this year. Also, apparently he's working on a Star Wars series based on Lando Carlson for Disney+. In May of 2024, Childish Gambino re-released 3/15/2020 as Atta Vista, which is a more finished version of the original album. He noted that his next project would be his final as Childish Gambino. But this wasn't newfound information for fans. He had brought up retirement years prior, saying, "I'll see you for the last Gambino album." There's nothing worse than like a 3rd sequel, like a 3rd movie, and we're like, again? You know, I like it when something's good and when it comes back, there's a reason to come back. There's a reason to do that. Bando Stone and the New World, Childish Gambino's final project, was released on July 19th, 2024, and also serves as the soundtrack to his upcoming film of the same name. I watched the trailer. It was incredible. It makes me super excited for the film, and I can't wait till we get an actual release release date. He discussed with the New York Times his decision in finally retiring Childish Gambino, saying, "It's not fulfilling and I just felt like I didn't need to build in this way anymore. I'm not 25 anymore. Standing in front of a boulder like this has to move. You give what you can, but there's beauty everywhere in every moment." I feel like everybody goes through that, not just artists. That feeling of like, what is any of this for? He set out for the New World Tour in August of 2024, but unfortunately after 18 shows, he confirmed on Twitter that he would have to cancel the remainder of the tour. After my show in New Orleans, I went to the hospital in Houston to make sure of an ailment that had become apparent. As of now, I have surgery scheduled and need time out to heal. With that said, we have made the difficult decision to cancel the remainder of the North American tour and the UK and European dates. I want nothing more than to bring the show to the fans and perform. Until then, thanks for love, privacy, and support. Going back to the two questions posed, was Atlanta really all that? Does Donald Glover really hate black women? You can answer the questions yourselves in the comments below. If you want to know my answer, I think Atlanta did what it was supposed to do. I think it did what needed to be done. Extremely impactful, not only for like the greater good of TV and entertainment, but for particularly black art, black storytelling. Catapulted people's careers like Brian Tyree Henry and Lakeith Stanfield. Showed like what can be done when you explore the absurdity of what it means to be human, what it means to be black in the United States of America, what it means to be hood adjacent. Atlanta served as like the natural progression of what was next for black media. As for does Donald Glover really hate black women? In my opinion, I don't think so. Honestly, I do not think so. I don't think the claims of misogynoir against him are baseless. It was really hard for me to like come up with a concrete answer on my thoughts of all of the research I did on his misogynoir, because it's some things I didn't know about. It's the swarm stuff that I interpreted completely differently than other black women. So I want to keep that in mind, that again, this is like a subjective answer, but no, I don't believe that Donald Glover has a hatred or disdain towards black women. I do think, let me just let this Reddit post say it because they say it better than I could. Oprah Winfrey says, "I have a pretty complicated relationship with his work/persona. There have been many moments where I felt alienated by the way Donald and his art engaged with black womanhood or black women characters. That weird self-interview, the way Van's character development imploded, etc. Donald clearly has a complicated relationship with black women and he's kind of admitted it, but it also feels like he trolls the public about it, which is a choice. I wish more people would just listen to black women when we try to flag things like this rather than shut us down completely." I think there's something to be said about the criticisms brought against him, and I think there's something to be said about the way he reacts to them. That's all I'm gonna say in regards to that. What do you guys think about Donald Glover? What do you think about this video? Let me know down below. Do you think Atlanta's worth the hype? Do you understand the misogynoir narrative that is attached to Donald Glover and his work? Who should I do for my next deep dive, or what do you guys want me to do for my next video? I do have some ideas written down. Issa Rae maybe, if we're staying in the theme of TV and film creators. Musical audits. We'll see. Bye. Yep, I'm a G from the A and they ask why. He's funny for that. I love that song, by the way.